Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to have you all on the call today. Let me just take this opportunity to welcome you to the first of our webinar series. We are really excited here at Honor to be able to kick off this series with a bang, as you can see. My name is Evans. I think as you saw on the email that we sent out, the email invite, I'm Evans. I'm part of the support and training team at Honor. I will be the one who will be facilitating this webinar. I will be closely assisted by some of my colleagues who are actually sitting in as panelists as well during the course of this session. So if you have any questions, I'll just request that you put them in the question and answer section. There is a question and answer section just within the webinar interface that you have on your end. And we should be able to get an answer to your questions just within the same platform. We also have a question and answer section at the very end of the session. So if you maybe would prefer to vocalize your question, I'd request you to just hold on to it until the very end when we wrap up with the presentation. And at that point, you can then raise your hand and we will be able to give you the opportunity to speak by way of unmuting you. So so welcome once again to the session. We're really happy to have you on board today. And just basically to kick things off, just a reminder of what Honor's mission is. The reason we exist is basically where need is greatest, we use data to transform lives. And basically what this goes to show is that data drives decisions and decisions create an opportunity for development. So we are in the business of not just giving you an opportunity to have a platform where you can be able to sort of receive or get data submitted, but at the same time, we are keen on development and the ability to be able to cause impact in the lives of people. So basically, even as we run this webinar series and as we begin the series, one thing that you'll get to see even from the various people who will be speaking in the coming months is that we are not only just going to be presenting our products, but we are basically also going to be talking a lot about ICT 4D, which is an area that is really developing at a quick rate. It is an area that we are very passionate about at Honor, and it's something that we will continue to hear continuously, even as we continue to talk about our products and our services. So we'll proceed to the next slide. So basically, why exactly did we start these webinars? So the first thing is basically to give you an opportunity to gain a better understanding of our product offering, and also at the same time, giving you the latest updates on new products and the latest trends in ICT 4D. I think I've already mentioned that we are very passionate about ICT 4D. And basically ICT 4D, we're basically referring to digital development and of course, information and communication technology for development, where we are talking about the use and the application of technology and digital tools in international development. And so this is something, again, that even through the products and services that we offer, that we continue to push, that in as much as, yes, we're providing you the platform to be able to house your data, but at the same time, we are keen on ensuring that we work hand in hand with you to ensure that there's some level of impact and some level of continuous development as well. Yeah. I have taken note of your message, Andy. Maybe I'll just request one of the panelists to just check on the Google Meet side to make sure that if there's anyone who's on that particular platform, they can be asked to move to this Zoom platform, just so that they don't miss out on the session. So thanks for taking note of that, Andy. The second thing is we are giving you an opportunity to network with like-minded professionals in the field. So what we hope to do with this forum, because it won't just be, it won't take on a very instructor or lecture-led approach. We want it to be a bit more engaging, even for future sessions. And so we'll give you the opportunity to ask questions. We'll give you the opportunity to also engage with people who are like-minded, people in the humanitarian sector, people who are keen on the area of ICT 4D and keen on basically developing tools that are able to cause an impact. So basically our topic for today is centered on tips and tricks in XLSForm authoring. And this is part of a main or key topic that we'll be covering over the next few months. We've titled it Form Authoring Cafe. And I think it'll be very interesting to just get to hear some of the things that you can learn just from XLSForm authoring, which is, again, something that I believe most of us have interacted with in one way or the other. And so the goal for this session is basically, number one, to gain an insight into a few tips to make XLSForm authoring easier and error-free. And I think personally in my interaction with most of you as our clients, I have seen that at times you find yourself authoring a form and you get stuck at some point, or you find yourself getting errors and you're not really able to identify where exactly those errors are. So I will also be giving you a few tips on how you can be able to sort of create or structure your forms in such a manner that you're able to identify the errors easily and also even avoid just the possibility of making errors in the course of you authoring your forms, and also how to easily troubleshoot any errors that may come up. And by doing that, we believe that it will give you an opportunity to also save time. Rather than reaching out to our support team, you'll also have the opportunity of troubleshooting those errors as and when they occur. And you'll also be able to sort of, apart from troubleshooting, be able to have best practices in regards to XLSForm authoring. Yeah. And then secondly, we also intend to give you a few use cases that present some key challenges experienced when authoring XLS forms and how to solve them. And what has informed the use cases we'll present to you is just some of the issues that some of you have raised, some of the questions that you've also raised even in the course of the registration period for this webinar. And so we'll be talking about some of those challenges. Of course, we may not talk about everything that you might have asked. Some things that maybe were asked or some questions will be covered in future webinars that we'll have. And so I just ask you to bear with us with some of the questions and maybe some of the things that may not be clear, because as we continue to go on with this series, you'll get to understand a bit more about XLSForm authoring in general. Yeah. So this is just a refresher on some of the things to always keep in mind as you're authoring your forms. And we usually emphasize this, especially during training sessions. I believe some of us have gone through a very, very detailed, elaborate training on XLSForm authoring, how exactly you're supposed to go about XLSForm authoring. As we always say, one of the key things we usually say, especially at Honor, is it's very, very important to test your form often. I think I've seen people waiting until the very end where you have over 200 rows of questions. And at that point, you decide that you want to try and test your form, and then you get an error. And as a result, it becomes a bit difficult to identify where exactly the error is. So what we normally advise is the moment you begin your form, let's say you have a couple of groups in your form, or repeat groups for that matter, it's advisable to just test the form first. The moment you create the first group, and then if the form is working as expected, then you can move on to the next section, test that section, and then move on like that until you get to the very end. Just to avoid any scenario where you have an error and you're not able to tell where exactly the error is. And as you know, when you're uploading your XLS form, it's not very, very descriptive in regards to the errors that are presented. So as a result, you might find yourself grappling with trying to understand where exactly is the error coming from, what exactly is causing the issue on your form. So we usually advise you to continuously test your form often. Secondly, we also say that XLS form syntax is very unforgiving. So key thing that you need to know is, of course, your file or XLS sheet should be saved in XLSX format and contain no spaces or special characters. So you should not have a file, an XLS form saved in CSV format, for instance, unless maybe on a separate occasion you'd like to attach that CSV file together with your form in light of perhaps a particular syntax you've used within your form, like the pull data function or the search function that intends to pull data from a CSV file or from another data set that has been uploaded within the project that you're working on. Secondly, worksheet names should be appropriately named. So use survey and not sheet 1 or survey with a capital S or surveys. So it's very, very case sensitive. You need to ensure that it is survey. If it is choices, you need to ensure that it is choices in lowercase letters. If it is a settings worksheet, you need to ensure that it is a settings worksheet and not with a capital S or with any of the words capitalized. Then the third thing is that field names should be unique. You should not have any spaces or special characters. So hyphens and underscores are allowed. But what we usually tell people is if you used hyphens just across your survey or your XLS form, then continue to maintain that particular format. If you use underscores, then continue to maintain that particular format, just to have a common structure across your form. Yeah. Yeah, just regarding the question that has been asked, yes, we will share the material with the webinar of the webinar with you at the end of the session. We will also share a recording. So thank you for that question. The other thing is field names should be short. So ideally, you should have a field name that has less than 30 characters. You don't want a field name that has a sentence because it will be a bit difficult when it comes to now the data analysis and the visualization of your indicators. So you want to ensure that ideally your field names are less than 30 characters. And then the other thing is that field names should all consistently follow one naming convention, as I've highlighted. So it's either underscores or hyphens to mark word breaks. And then column headers should be in lowercase. So this, in other words, should mean label and not label with a capital L. Name should be in small or lowercase letters. If you have a relevant column, if you have a hint column, all those should be in lowercase letters and not in capital letters. And then finally, XLSForm.org is your form authoring friend. When it comes to just understanding the basics of form authoring syntax, we usually advise you to just go to XLSForm.org. It will give you details on how exactly to basically deal with various syntax, how to structure your questions, the basics of XLS form authoring, what is compatible with the various data collection methods that we have in place or tools, i.e. Enketo or ODK collect, because you need to have that in mind when you're building your XLS form from the very beginning. You need to know what tool are you going to use, because that will inform which particular syntax you will use. And of course, it will also inform to what extent particular syntax will be compatible with the tool that you've actually selected. So that is very, very important to take note of. So now we go on into the XLS form use cases. So these are basically the various use cases that we'll be covering. So one is how to build a matrix of questions using the appearance column. We'll also talk about how to improve sampling accuracy with weighted random selections. And then we'll look at two examples of how to rank values based on previous selections using the choice filter. So as I begin this, just to also make this clear, we will not be authoring the forms during the course of this session because of time. So I've already pre-authored all of the forms. I will be displaying what they appear on Enketo as well as ODK Collect side by side with the forms, just so that you're able to understand better, as opposed to us sort of authoring the forms during the session and taking a bit longer than we actually have, because essentially we should be taking about an hour on this particular session. Yeah, so just bear with me with that. As I said, I will be sharing the slides. All the XLS forms have been attached to these slides, so you'll be able to access the XLS forms as well. You'll be able to play around with the XLS forms, upload them on your end, see how they work, get to see the details on the explanations that I'll give within the notes that I'll also provide. So not to worry, you'll have this, of course, you'll have access to this document and you'll be able to go back and review some of the things we'll cover. So the first thing that we'll look at is building a matrix of questions using the appearance column. Also, panelists, just a reminder, just make sure you're checking the chat and the Q&A section, just to make sure you respond to the questions that, that have been asked, because I can see a couple of people have started asking questions. So just be on the alert in case you see any questions, just go ahead and begin to answer them. Thank you. So we'll start with building a matrix of questions using the appearance column. So basically, when we talk about building a matrix of questions using the appearance column, the importance of this, and you'll get to see it in the next slides, is that it reduces the amount of space that you use in the survey when asking similar questions. So instead of having a survey that has a long list of questions, you can be able to make that very compact and very, very easy to sort of interpret and read through by using a matrix of questions. So it really makes your design, your form design, very, very smooth and easy to read for the people who are responding to your form, including your enumerators. So it's a very, very good tool if you're a person who actually comes up with very lengthy surveys. The second thing is it saves time, because the respondent doesn't have to read through the same question multiple times. and answer each one individually if the matrix wasn't there. So it also helps in that regard, because you're able to easily just sort of answer a question easily and not have to go back and refer to a section that you had passed, because everything is already in a matrix and it's easy to read within one particular page. Then also the other thing is that it helps with question wording and data analysis. So it makes your data analysis work a bit more easier. It makes it easier to clean out your data by the time you finish the data collection, and now you're going into the visualization phase. And so we really, really encourage you to use this in the event that you have a long set of questions. More so if you have questions where you're asking for, let's say, integer values. This comes really, really in handy if you're the type of person who comes up with such questions. So in case you'd like to do this, the first thing that you need to do is you need to use the theme grid appearance. And this is under the style column of your settings worksheet. I'll actually show you a screenshot of this so you'll be able to understand it better. And then you can create a group and define the width of each column using either W1, W2, W3, and should be up to W4 to indicate the relative width of a group or a cell. So the default width of a group, if you don't have the matrix layout set out, it's normally W4. So W4 stands for 4 columns. So if you have W1, that's 1 column. If you have W2, it's 2 columns. If you have W3, it's 3 columns, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So you can actually be able to decide the length in terms of the width of what your matrix would look like, or your matrix appearance would look like, just based on the relative width of the group or the cell. So if you define the group width as W4, and within the group, each of the questions take W2, it basically tells you that you'll have two, either a note and a question, your integer question appearing on one row and following that particular order. So the key thing to understand is this can only be done on Enketo web forms and not ODK collect. There is an alternative option you can use for ODK collect that I will also show you. But for Enketo, this only works specifically for Enketo and not ODK collect. So this is how your form would look without the matrix layout. You can all attest to the fact that this does not look presentable at all. It's very difficult to understand what exactly do these values mean? What are they collecting? What does the labels, the category, the number of household members under 5 years specifically refer to? It's a bit difficult to interpret because there's no matrix that has been put in this particular question. So if you put all your questions in groups, you'll also avoid layout issues, as you can see, also when you're printing your forms. So if you want to print hard copy versions of the forms, then the matrix layout also works really, really well because it gives you the option of presenting it in a manner that is easy for the people who are filling data to interpret, a manner that is easy for anyone who is going through your form to be able to also understand. Okay, I'll move to the next slide. So we'll basically go through a demo of how to use the appearance column to create a matrix table and collect the number of members within a household. Okay, so to start with, the first step that you need to take is on your settings worksheet, you need to ensure that under the style column, you have what we call the theme grid. So there are various layouts. So you need to ensure that you have the theme grid set as your style. If you want, the theme grid normally comes in uppercase letters. So if you want it to be in lowercase letters, ideally, you'll need to put in theme grid, no text transform. So it looks something like this. I'll just put it on the chart so that we can be able to see what that looks like. So in case you want to maybe use lowercase letters, you can use just specifically what I've put there, theme grid, no text transform, so that you can be able to make the letters appear in sentence case, so to speak, and not in caps. So you must set the theme grid for this matrix layout to work. That's the first step. The other thing that you need to do is on your XLS form, you need to ensure that you have an appearance column. And then at the very beginning, as you can see the begin group at the top, right here, I have my W2. So you need to specify the total width or the width, the length of the whole matrix that you're actually setting up. And then under that, you will begin to specify the size of the various rows or the size in which the columns, each of the columns will take. So for example, the first note 1, which is category, has width 1. The second note has width 1. All that will be on one line or one row. Then the second part will have with 1, the next one with 1, all that will be on the second row, the third one, and so on and so forth until the very end. So if you do that, as has been shown, you'll basically end up with a layout that appears like that, yeah, which makes it very easy. So as you can see, what this tells you is, could you please specify the number of your household members by age and sex? And then you have your category. So for under 5 years, you put in the number of household members. For 5 to 17 years, the number of household members under that age group, and so on and so forth. And then at the very end, you have total household members, which is a summation of the values that have basically been keyed in for all of the categories. So as you can see, if you print this out, it looks very presentable. And as you can see, it's very, very easy to do. Using your appearance column, you're able to just make that customization easily. And you're able to just sort of make this appear more presentable as opposed to what we had at the very beginning. Yeah. So this is an option you can use when you're authoring your forms. Yeah. On ODK Collect, just to make this also clear, remember that we said that this matrix appearance is not compatible with ODK Collect. However, there's a workaround if you'd like to use ODK Collect and you want to structure your questions and your choices in a manner that is a bit more presentable as opposed to what is shown just on ODK Collect on the default layout. So what this means is it involves putting your selected questions in a field list group and using the below appearance attributes. So a field list is basically used to indicate that all the questions should appear on the same screen. So that's what the field list basically does. If you put it under the appearance attributes, it basically means that all your questions should appear on the same screen. And then under that particular group, on the label basically shows, it will only display the answer choice labels and not the inputs. So you'll have the option labels, but you'll not have any checkboxes that will be displayed. You'll actually see this practically, and I'll repeat it. Secondly is also the list no label. And here only checkboxes or radio buttons are displayed without their labels, okay? So what this would look like on your form is something like this. So at the very beginning, as I said, for field list, you have to use field lists at the beginning of your group. And so under the appearance column, right here, you'll need to put in field list at the very beginning of the group. And then under the group, because what this does is it basically puts everything into one single page. Under the group, from the very first question, you need now to define the specific appearance as well and say that it is a label. So the reason we are saying it is a label is because we want to display the answer choice labels and not the inputs. So basically, if you look at the form on ODK Collect, what you have here is the answer choice labels, which is yes and no, okay? So if you want to display just the answer choice labels, that's how you do it. You actually basically use label. And then once you've defined the labels, these parameters at the top where the conditions are, then the next questions will now have list no label. So list no label will display the answer inputs without the labels, okay? So like, for example, for pregnancy, you'll just have basically these check boxes appearing. For postpartum, the same thing. You'll have the check boxes, and also for the rest of the other questions. So if you use list no label, it will display the name, which is basically pregnancy, but it'll only display these boxes to allow you to select either yes or no. So by doing that, all this is on one page as opposed to having it appear on different pages. Yeah. So that's another workaround you can use for ODK Collect. Also, thank you, panelists. I see that you're also responding to the questions, so I really appreciate that. The other thing now we'll move on to is improving sampling accuracy with weighted random selections. So basically, every data collector normally runs into an issue where at some point you actually know the makeup of your population as a whole, but you only have access to a small group that isn't representative. So basically, if you want to address this issue, what you need to do is to build a survey function that will randomly select people to survey in a weighted manner, okay? So the weighting adjustment is basically a common statistical correction technique, and it basically compensates for the presence of bias. And it gives, what it does, it gives underrepresented people or elements in your sample a larger weight than those that are overrepresented, okay? Again, this will make more sense when I go into the specific demo, okay? So I'll basically use a function random to return numbers from 0.0 to 1.0 and combine that with weighted values to create random weighted selections in a survey. So in this use case, what we want to do is we want to randomly survey a sample of citizens and refugee families. And everyone basically, in this, the data from the data we are collecting, everyone lives in houses with 3 families, okay? So we want to go to each house and then register each family living in it, and then have the survey randomly choose which family to survey. But because we know by default, and this is the assumption that we are making in this use case, by default, the population is mostly citizens. We want to adequately capture both groups. We want to capture the citizens as well as the refugees. So since refugees are underrepresented, what we want to do is we will assign them a larger weight or a higher probability of being selected to be surveyed compared to citizens. And what this will do is it will create some sort of equal playing field so that we don't end up conducting this survey. Maybe we survey or run the survey for about 200 different households, and we end up having a bias because we have citizens being selected as opposed to refugees. We want some element of a balance. So that's what the weighted average will actually help you to achieve, or the weighted values basically that will work on to create a random weighted selection in a survey will basically help you achieve, okay? So this is what the form will look like. So I'll go through it. It's a bit lengthy, but I'll go through the main parts. So we will, what we basically want to do in this survey or this XLS form is we want to assign the refugees and the citizens weights of 0.6 and 0.4. So the refugees will have 0.6. We're giving them a higher weight because they are underrepresented. The citizens will have 0.4. And then this will basically result in the refugees having half more chance of being selected over the citizens. So if we basically have 3 families in a household, for example, that is 2 citizen families and 1 refugee family, then you want to assign weights of 0.4, 0.4, and 0.6 respectively. That is basically citizen, citizen, and then refugee. Yeah. So for each family in the house, what we want to do is we want this selection to be random. Yeah. We want it to be random, and we want to multiply the weight by a random number that will be generated using the random function, okay? And then the family with the highest value will be selected for a survey. And the reason for this is 0.6 is larger than 0.4. So the possibility of the refugee family being selected is higher than that of a citizen family. So the functions I will basically use, just to take you through the main functions, is you will actually see a calculate function here. That's if A1 is equals to 1.0, or rather 1, 0.6, and 0.4. So what this function does is it assigns weights for a refugee and a citizen. Remember we said for the refugee it's 0.6, for the citizen is 0.4. So this assigns particular weights for the citizen and for the refugee. The second one that we'll look at is once random. So what this one does is it generates a random number from 0.0 to 1.0 for each family. So it'll just generate a random number because we want this to be random. We want the selection to basically be random. And then the third one is randomize and of course multiplied by weights. So these are references to these 2 calculate fields. So whatever we obtain here, we want to multiply that or compute the product of the weights and the random number that has been generated for each family. And thereafter, we want to display all these calculate fields in notes, as you can see. So we have a note for the weights, we have a note for randomize, we have a note for the product as well. Yeah. The other part that we need to know is the max product, which is this calculate field on this row. So the max product is basically a function that will return the maximum product from the type check repeat group. So the type check repeat group is this repeat group that you're seeing here. So because we want to obtain the max product or the maximum product, we will use max product to get the maximum product from this particular repeat group that you see here. The other bit is position, which I think you might have encountered when you're dealing with repeat groups. So position will basically return the current index position of the checkmarks repeat group. Yeah. So it will return just the index, the position of the person, the position in which the respondent is actually in when they're filling the form. Yeah. And then we also have the indexed repeat, that is A3, type check, and post prod, which is this calculate field over here. So this one extracts the family name matching the position in the type check repeat group that we have just seen up here. Yeah. And then on the next indexed repeat that you'll see here, another calculate field, it basically says indexed repeat product type check post prod. So what this does is it extracts the product of the weight and the random number of the family matching the position in the type check repeat group. Okay, so what we're basically doing here is just basically matching first the position of the person in the type check repeat group that we have. And then we're also matching the product and the weight as well, and also the name, just using these indexed repeats. Yeah. Then we also have an if statement there. If prod underscore comp is equals to max product name comp and the quotation marks there. So this one will evaluate if the product of the weight and random number of a family is the maximum. So if it is the maximum, then the family name will be generated automatically. If it's not, then a blank, it will basically return a blank value, or nothing will basically end up being returned. Hence the reason we have these quotation marks at the end. Yeah. Then also we have a join. So this join that you see here, this calculate field, it displays the results of the above if function, this one here. So it'll display the results of this function for the variable display underscore comp and separated by a space. So it'll basically just separate the two values with a space and will display them in this note that you see here, so that it's able to tell you which specific family or household member or household name to actually interview. So what this would look like on Enketo is, what it will ask is, basically it will ask the person to enter the number of families. So in our case here, I put 3. So if you enter 2, it will basically open up 2 of iterations of the repeat group. If you enter 4, it will open up 2 iterations of the repeat group. In this case, we've said 3. So it will have 3. We'll have 3 options where we can decide to have either refugee or citizen and put in the family name. So 3 family repeat groups appear. That is the second part. So 3 family repeat groups appear, and you'll be required to enter the family name. In my case, it is Kamau, which is a Kenyan name. So it will show, you'll actually put in Kamau, and then from there, you'll be requested to mark the family as a citizen or refugee. And if you do that, a weight will be assigned accordingly. So remember, if we say refugee, the weight assigned is 0.4 because they are the lower or underrepresented majority of the sample size that we have. But if I say if I say citizen, then it will automatically assign 0.6. So because Kalonzo is classified as a refugee, then the weight assigned will be 0.4. And then number 4, a random number will be generated. So the random number is what you see there in decimal form. So it's 0.87, that long number that you see displayed. Then the random number will be multiplied by the weight. This is just simply what I've shown you on the XLS form, but just what it appears like on Enketo. So the product of the weight and the random number will be displayed. And then after repeating steps 2 and 3 for the remaining families, what will happen is that the product from step 5 will be compared across families and the maximum product identified. So basically, after you fill up all of the repeat group in iterations, then what will happen is it will now compute the product from step 5 and compare that across the families and the maximum product that has been identified. And then from there, the family name corresponding to the maximum product will be selected for the interview. So at the very bottom, it will display a random name that will have been selected based on the names that have been keyed in for all of the repeat groups. And this will be done automatically. So what that does is you have your sample size, you know that there's refugees who are underrepresented. So based on that, the system will automatically pick a particular family just based on the specific families you put there and the computation that has been done based on also the weighting, which is either 0.4 for refugees and 0.6 for the citizens. Yeah, so it works like that. It's a very it can be a very complex XLS form, but if you break it down, again, as I said at the beginning in the tips, then it becomes easier for you to actually understand it. Yeah. The other one, which is ranking of values based on previous selections using choice filter. So basically, what this use case represents is it shows the possibility of being able to filter a ranking question from a multiple choice question. Yeah. So the choice filter can basically allow you to filter out the values, selected values, and rank them based on your preference. So you have the option of being able to rank these values very easily using the choice filter option. And I'll basically show you two examples on how you can achieve this. The first one is we'll look at a simple example that allows you to rank livelihood activities selected from a select multiple question using the choice filter. It's a very, very simple form with about 2 rows. And then the second one is a bit more detailed, and it's about creating another form where a user will be required to select factors that a man would like to achieve. And then thereafter, the user will have the option of shortlisting at least 3 of the factors selected from the select multiple question. So this will again use the choice filter. Yeah. So for the first one, what we want to do over here is we want to give the users an option of selecting from various livelihood activities that have been provided. So the livelihood activities shown on the Enketo appearance that you see with an arrow are wage labor, crop farming and sales, livestock keeping, government schemes and programs, skilled labor, small business, and of course, salaried work. So these are the various livelihood activities that the respondent can be able to select from. So after they've selected the activities, they'll now have the opportunity of being able to rank those activities based on the most predominant to the least within their area. So what you'll need to do is, of course, you'll have your select multiple question for the activities. You'll define the various choices within your choices worksheet. So that would be wage labor, crop farming and sales, livestock keeping, and all the other choices as well. And then from there, you'll need to have, you'll use what we call rank activities. So here you'll have the option of being able to select the various activities that have been selected in the previous select multiple question. So for this to work, the thing that you need to do is under the choice filter column, you'll need to put in selected and then open the brackets, have this $, and then specifically define the name of the previous question, the select multiple question, which in our case is livelihood underscore activities, and then close your parenthesis, put a comma, and then type in name, because you want to obtain the names of the various activities that have been selected in the previous question. So if you run this on Enketo, basically what will happen is whatever activities have been selected here, the user will be able to now rank those activities from the most predominant to the least. So that's basically the simple explanation for this particular form. It is as easy as that. You're actually able to basically rank the various activities based on maybe your preference in terms of the activities that are most predominant within a particular area. Yeah, so that's the first use case. So the second use case is a bit more detailed. So what you need to do is you need to, of course, have your select multiple question. And in this case, we're asking people to sort of specify what factors a man wishes to achieve. So you can see the choices at the bottom over here. So you have high income, you have high position, you have power, you have family happiness, you have a son, high sexual ability, wide relations, and so on and so forth. So they can be able to select from each of these. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to give them the opportunity to, of course, first select. If they select other, then they'll of course need to specify that, and we've defined that in our XLS form here. And then now, once they've selected the various factors that a man wishes to achieve, from the list of choices, we want them to choose 3 factors that a man wishes to achieve. So this is in order of what they believe might be the highest factor to what they believe may be the 3rd highest factor, so to speak. So in this case, we'll have a select one question, and then we'll use the choice filter column in this case. So we'll say selected, and then open the brackets and put a $, and then say Q0. So Q0 is the name of our select multiple question up here. which is where we are asking them the factors a man wishes to achieve. So we put Q0 so that whatever choices have been selected in Q0 will basically be displayed under a drop-down in this particular select one question. So they'll be able to select the various factors that a man wishes to achieve just based on which one they feel would be the first factor. For the second factor, and what you also need to note about this selected Q0 name, just to place emphasis, is that it ensures that the choice name, the choice selected in question 1 or question 0, which is up here, is displayed in the drop-down under this particular question. Yeah, so it'll basically display whatever has been selected in this particular question under the drop-down for the first factor. The second one, which is now for the second factor, the only difference is we are adding name is not equal to Q1.1. So Q1.1 is the previous question where we're asking for the first factor. So the reason we do that is because we don't want the choice selected as the first factor to appear in the choices displayed in the second factor. Yeah, so it's from a logical standpoint, that basically makes sense. Reason being, you don't want to have someone select a factor here as the first factor, and then under the second factor, the same factor that they've selected as the first one is appearing there, because it will, of course, mess up your data. Okay, so you want to just ensure that whatever factor has been selected in the first one does not also appear in the second factor. So how you do that is name is not equal to question 1.1. For the third factor, it's the same thing. We will have name is not equal to question 1.1, which is what we have here, the first factor. And at the same time, name is not equal to question 1.2, which is the second factor, because we don't want what has appeared, what has been selected as the first factor to be selected as the third factor. We don't want what has also been selected as the second factor to appear as the third factor. Yeah, so that's how it basically works. The other thing is we've used JR choice name as just under the calculate field. So the purpose as to why we used the JR choice name is because you want to obtain the choice names from the select one questions. Okay, so without the calculation that you're seeing here, these JR choice name calculations, what will happen is that the variables under the name column of our choices, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 13, will actually be displayed under these notes that we have here. So in order to pull the specific label for the choices that we have selected under first, second, and third factor, we need to use JR choice name. And as such, by doing this, we are now able to display them in notes, as you can see, in this note question, which is the last one on the XLS form. Yeah. So that's basically how this works. So how this would look on Enketo is you have your question where you're asking for the factors a man wishes to achieve. So the person will select the various factors. It's a select multiple question. So they'll select multiple factors based on what they feel a man wishes to achieve. And then the next question will now ask them to choose the 3 factors just from the list that they've selected. So bear in mind, what we've selected here is what appears under the drop-down that you see here. So high income, power, family happiness, good dignity, contribute to society, and good health. So if I select high income as the first factor, I should not expect to see high income under the list of choices under the second factor. And the reason is because of what we had in this choice filter column, where we said that the name should not be equal to whatever choice that I've selected as my first factor. Yeah. So whatever I've selected will then not show in the other drop downs, the second factor and the third factor. So once you select the first factor, the second factor, and the third factor, these will now be displayed in the notes that we have at the bottom. So the first factor selected by the respondent is high income. The second one is good dignity. The third one is contribute to society. So it's another way in which you can be able to rank your questions. Okay. So with that, those are some of the use cases that we wanted to present to you. I want to just move on to the questions. So I'll tackle first the questions shared before the session, and then I'll open the floor for maybe about 10 or so minutes or 15 minutes to allow you all to ask any questions that you might have. And of course, myself and the panelists will be able to now respond to your questions. So there are 2 questions that were asked. A couple of the other questions that were asked were related to topics that we may cover in future webinars. So these are basically the two that were asked that I decided to bring here because the first one is related to what we've covered already during the course of this session. The second one is also related to something we may cover in future, a bit of the updates that we intend to roll out for our products and some of the things that we are working on that you should look forward to. So the first one is how do you design the form as sentence case instead of uppercase while using style as theme grid? I had answered this in part. So the theme grid that we talked about in the previous slides, what it does is it has all headings in caps by default. So if you'd like to have your form appear as sentence case instead of uppercase, then you'll need to use theme grid no text transform. I had shared that on the chat. So if you use that, what it will do is it will make sure everything appears as sentence case, basically. So I'd answered that. The second question was what are the latest updates on Honors products? So one of the key things we're working on now that I think is very exciting and is something you should look forward to is a product called Akuko. And basically Akuko means story or news. It's actually Igbo, which is a popular language in southeastern Nigeria. And basically it's a data storytelling platform that makes it very easy for you to build interactive maps, charts, and also tables from different data sources. So you have the option of basically uploading your data source onto the platform and basically combining all that data and just to develop a story using photos and text as well. So the beauty with this platform that we're rolling out is that there's a no-code interface. So it's very easy even for maybe someone who's not a technical person per se to be able to develop rich interactive maps, to develop charts, tables, and other visualizations. Secondly, it gives you an array of world-class maps. So you're able to make it very easy to build interactive maps. Of course, these are powered by Mapbox. And at the same time, it's easy to just get data styling tools that you can use. And we've also done a lot of building in terms of how the map appearance looks, the filtering of the maps, the layout of the maps as well, just to ensure you have a bit more data visualization options when it comes to developing a story. And at the same time, this platform also gives you high quality, consistent data visualization components. So much as it's a work in progress, our goal is actually to provide you with a set of high quality data visualization components that are visually consistent as well with each other. And also, we also would like to sort of give you, again, a platform that is user-friendly, that will limit options to help you as a user be able to make better visualization decisions. So Akuko is definitely something you should look forward to in the coming months. I think once we've firmed up on the details and the product is ready, then we should be able to actually present this to you, either by way of webinar or even in other forms. And you'll actually be able to see some of the capabilities that this platform has. Yeah. So finally, we'll go into the Q&A section. I want to open the floor. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. Then I'll be able to unmute you, and myself as well as the panelists will then be able to respond to your questions. Yeah. I know Olugbenga had asked whether we can have a live demo instead of screenshots. I believe Megan is responding to that already. Anyone else with a question? Can you share with us the link of this platform? I believe you're referring to, is that Akuko? Fuad? I'm not sure. Maybe you can type and clarify on that as well. I think there was someone who raised their hand. I think it's Gezahin. I'll allow you to talk. So I'll just allow you to just vocalize your question.
Sorry, I'm just want to have a question, especially on this app on mobile. So is this applicable for both? I mean, what call it? ODK and other application. So, or can we have a mobile app for Enketo?
That would be the mobile app for, are you referring to the Honor platform or Akuko, or which specific product?
Yes, Coco.
Oh, for Akuko. Yeah, so for Akuko, it's still a product in development. So I think the details around the compatibility of whether it would be available on mobile will also be outlined as time goes by. So I think that once the product is ready, we should be able to give you details on compatibility. So maybe I'll ask you, or I'll request you to just give us some time as we build and finish up on just finalizing the product and having it ready for you all as our clients. And then from there, we can give you details on the compatibility of it, if that's okay. Yeah. Olugbenga, I think I'll allow you to talk as well.
Unmute. All right, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, awesome. Good morning, Evans and the owner team. First, I'd like to say thank you to you guys for an awesome service. Since 2017, I've been using your platform, and to be candid, I've had very wonderful experience. So my question is, how often do you hold this webinar? This is the first time I'm actually attending a webinar by owner. And when I came to Kenya in 2019, I was hoping to visit your office, but I couldn't. I asked somebody around, nobody knew where your office was, but maybe when next I come. So how often do you hold this webinar is the question I have. And do you conduct maybe virtual training on XLSForms, or maybe any other training that you conduct? Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Olugbenga. So this webinar is actually the first one. We are launching a webinar series today. So what we want to do is to have a webinar after every 2 months. So basically, we expect to have the next webinar around March this year. And then the next one will probably be around May. But details around the topics that will be covered, the schedule will be communicated. But even on the registration form, we did request you to just let us know if maybe you'd like us to keep you in copy of anything around the webinars. So if you do, you can still write to us on support@honor. Maybe if you didn't do so, you can write to us on via support@honor.io. Just let us know that you'd like to be added to the webinar mailing list. And then from there, we should be able to add you, and you'll be kept posted about anything regarding the webinars that we intend to have. But we intend to do this bi-monthly, which would mean after every 2 months, we'll be holding a webinar session. And basically, we'll be giving you details around the topics and who will specifically be facilitating, because some of our other team members as well will be facilitating some sessions, and we'll keep you posted on just the details around that. I think you had asked another question on training. So regarding training, we do provide training on XLSForm authoring, and also on all of our products, basically, all of the products that we have at Honor. And of course, we have specific costs attached to that. So you can also, again, write to us on support@honor.io if you're interested in maybe getting a training in a particular area. Of course, it has to be within our scope. That's basically our products, our data collection tools as well. And then once we get a request from you, we'll be able to give you details around maybe a sample course outline of what we're likely to cover, and also details around the pricing as well. Maybe you can also highlight in your email the objectives of the training, what maybe are the gaps that your team might have. And from there, we can give you details on what exactly we can cover, what we can do, what's within our scope, define the number of days, the timings, whether you'd like it virtual or physical. So we cover all those details. You can just write to us, and we'll then be able to give you details, and we'll be able to assist further on virtual training as well. Yeah. Hope it answers it, Olugbenga.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madi, I think I'll allow you to talk as well.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'm using your platform since last 2 or 3 years, and sometimes I face challenges, and this challenge is mainly finding a way to use, for example, an API from you to populate a specific dashboard I want to design myself. So I don't know if in your upcoming session like this, you can plan to have how to use an API to get out data that we can use to populate other dashboard. And so this is just a request. And also I have a question. Example, on the feed, maybe I use other tools to collect data, and I have the database available, and I have a census to do, and I have more than 4 million like population, all countries population data, which is not collected from your platform. And I would like to use that data to implement a subsequent campaign or a survey. I don't know if they have a possibility to use existing data like this and integrate it to your platform, maybe using an API or other means of integration to have this done. So this is the 2 questions I have for you. Over.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. I'll allow the panelists, maybe George or Samson, maybe you can respond to Maddie, if any of you are available.
Yeah, sure. So Maddie, regarding your first question, yes, we do have an API that can populate your dashboard. I don't know how your dashboard is built. I don't know what platform it is on. However, we can build a connector for you to get data from on a platform directly into a DB of your choice. And you can also use our API just to extract data from the owner side of things or onto whatever you need to put your data to. Regarding your second question, I didn't quite catch that. Would you please say that again?
Okay. Thanks for the first question. The second question is, for example, I have a database, an existing database, maybe my SQL database, which contains all population data, or an SQL Server database, or any others, or I have a JSON file through an API providing me population data, all country population data, for example. And I want to use that data as an existing data and return back to the field to do like a specific administration of drug or something. I need to do implement a campaign, a health campaign or something. So I want to see if you have a future or a possibility to have a kind of integration which we can use an existing database for any means to have a subsequent campaign, for example, be done. I don't know if you understand my question.
Okay, yeah, I did understand that you have possibly a SQL database or a JSON data set. What I didn't understand is what kind of campaign would you like to do?
I'm saying anything. For example, maybe an onchoiasis campaign. I have the population data, and I don't want to do a census again. But an existing database, I will just use their database, identify the people within this database when visiting their household, and use that to use your platform, for example, Educate, to collect their information and provide a specific draft to them. This is just an example. because there are many things in that way. But
Uh-huh.
basically, we have a
Mhm.
database, an existing database. We can fit the questionnaire, the criteria to a specific campaign, ref campaign, and we can administer interest on providing goods to population. And so it's just to know if this is feasible using existing database integrated from your platform and use now ODK to implement in the campaign. Yeah.
I think I understand what you're saying. So unfortunately, currently, the only way you can integrate an honor form is using a CSV, where you can pull data from the CSV to load attributes of your data collection if you have an already existing set of data. Regarding the SQL or the JSON, we currently don't have that supported. That may have to be a third-party solution. So yeah, so you can reach out to us later, and we can discuss the possibility of that.
Okay, this is well noticed. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, George. Thank you, Maggie. I think we may only have space or room for 2 more questions, because I can see we are gone slightly above the time that we had allocated. So maybe I'll request maybe Zubairu, you can put your question in the question and answer section, if you don't mind. Just that way, while the other 2 people who asked questions can quickly just respond. Actually, I see one person has dropped off in terms of questions. So maybe I'll allow both you and Zubairu and Mahmudul to maybe ask the questions, and then we can wrap up this session. So maybe Zubairu, you can go first.
Hello, good morning all.
Good morning.
This is my question. I have I created a form on Honor, so I shared out the link. So it has a location where it could help me get coordinates. So on the result on the map. So what I want to ask, I don't know if there's any possibility for me to further work on the map. For example, from where I am, to see the possibility of maybe the distance from where I am to the person reporting or my respondent on the form that's on the map.
Okay, thanks a lot for your question. Samson, are you able to take that? If not Samson, then Megan, are you available?
Since Samson is not available, Zubairu, if I get this correctly, you have some map data that you want to visualize, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and sorry, what was your question again?
Okay, it's a project I'm presently trying to do. So I want people to report an incident. So from where I am, I want to see the nearest distance, the nearest location on how I could get to the location of the person reporting the correspondent of my form.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so currently what Honor supports is showing the data points that you have collected on a map, giving you the latitude and the longitude, possibly a polygon, and that sort of thing, that sort of functionality. And so getting the distance between a point, the nearest distance between a point, is not something we currently support. Again, that will need to be a third-party implementation. So yeah, we can discuss that later, and you can give us a full list of requirements and see if we can have, if that is within our scope. Yeah.
It's okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Zubairu, for that question. I think we'll have to close at that point. I know Mahmoudul had lifted up his hand, so maybe I'd request you to put your question either on the chat or maybe write to us on support@honor.io, and then from there we can be able to address the question that you have. We're really grateful to all of you for taking time to attend this first webinar. As I said, this is the first of many others that we intend to have. We hope that by doing this, we'll actually be able to have the opportunity of not just engaging and interacting with you, but also for you to be able to at least learn more about the products that we are offering, learn more about ICT4D, as we had said, and also we hope to, of course, have an opportunity to partner with you in other areas in regards to ICT4D. So we are really grateful for your time. We will be sharing out a feedback form after this session. So I'll just request you to take some time to fill it up. It shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. So just take some time, fill up the form, give us your feedback on the session, give us feedback on also any other topics that you'd like to see us cover in the coming months. And we'll see how best to be able to schedule those and plan towards the same. So we are really, really grateful to you all. We are grateful to you for the support that you also give us, even as people who are offering your platform to be able to handle your data analysis needs. And we also hope that even as we continue to work together, that we'll be able to build even a more stronger engagement with you. We hope to be able to build products that are able to support you better. And we hope to even give you even better support in the coming months, even as we continue to work with you. So we're really, really grateful to you all. I wish you a lovely day, lovely afternoon, lovely morning, lovely evening to you all, wherever in the world you are tuning into this webinar from. And thank you so much once again. And you may leave at your own pleasure.